Okay, I wanted to go over 7.4 with you guys. Please check this with your assignment and make sure you did them correctly. Your grades should be in gradebook so you can get into Parent Portal and check those. So remember, if you are finding the inverse, we had those steps that we follow. So this is your assignment from last week. Your first step was to get rid of f of x, and we're to change that to y. So once I have changed that to a y, this is what we have. You are now supposed to switch the places of x and y. So now it would read x equals 5y squared plus 2. Now our goal is to get y by itself. So you would solve this just like any equation. So your first step would be to move the 2. So I subtract 2 from both sides. And now I have x minus 2 is equal to 5y squared. Now I need to get rid of the 5. So I'm going to divide both sides by 5. And now those go away. So now I have x minus 2 over 5 equals y squared. And to get rid of the square, we take the square root. Now remember, when you take the square root of the other side, you have to take the square root of both the top and the bottom. So this is a big mistake I saw on the assignment. We can't have square roots in the bottom, so we need to get rid of them by multiplying it times itself. But rules say if I multiply the bottom, I also have to multiply the top. So we multiply what's underneath the square root. So in the top, that would be 5 times x, which is going to give us 5x, and 5 times negative 2, which is going to give us negative 10, all over 5 times 5, which is going to give us the square root of 25, equals y. You can take the square root of 25. So we should end up with the square root of 5x minus 10 over 5. And your last step is to change your y to f inverse. So a lot of people multiplied the bottom by square root of 5, but you forgot to multiply the top. So you ended up with x, the square root of x minus 2 over 5, or over 25 because you didn't square root the bottom like you were supposed to. So no square roots in the bottom. All right, number 2. So we need to change f of x into y, and then we have to switch the x and the y. So now I would have x equals parenthesis y minus 3 squared plus 7. So we would first need to move the 7, which most of you did. So I have x minus 7 equals y minus 3 squared. Now we need to get rid of the square. You cannot move that 3 because it is inside the parentheses until you get rid of the square. So we have to take the square root of both sides. So now I have the square root of x minus 7 equals y minus 3. Most of you made it this far. Now I need to move the 3 to the other side. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So now I have the square root of x minus 7 plus 3 equals y. The minus 7 is underneath the square root. The 3 is not. We took the square root before we moved the 3 over there, so you cannot combine these two because this one's under a square root and this one is not. So you're done. You cannot combine the negative 7 and the 3. Last step is to change this to f inverse. So I'll have f inverse x equals the square root of x minus 7 plus 3. All right, number 3. Again, change it to a y, switch your x and y. So you're going to have x equals y squared plus 2. So we need to move the 2 over. So I have x minus 2 equals y squared. And now I need to get rid of the square. My last step is to change the y into inverse. Almost everyone got this one correct. So on the top row, my biggest mistakes that we noticed were that we did not multiply the top inside here to get 5x minus 10, or we forgot to take the square root of the 25 to get 5 in the bottom. On number 2, a lot of you combined these two numbers, and you cannot do that because one's under a square root and one is not. All right, number 4. So on number 4, I need to switch the x and y. So I'm going to have x equals 5y squared. Now I need to get rid of the 5, so I divide by 5. Those go away. And now I have to take the square root. Remember, we are taking the square root of the top and bottom, just like we did on number 1. We do not want a square root in the bottom, so to get rid of that, we multiply it times itself. Do it to the bottom, got to do it to the top. So we multiply the 5 and the x, which is going to give us square root of 5x, over 5 times 5, which is the square root of 25. You can take the square root of 25. It becomes 5. You cannot take the square root of 5x, so it stays underneath the square root, but the bottom becomes just 5. And we change our y into inverse. So this one's very similar to number 1. All right, number 5. So first I change this into a y and I switch my x and y. And now I need to get y by itself. So my first step is to add 4 to both sides. So I have x plus 4 equals 6y squared. Now I need to get rid of the 6, so I divide both sides by 6, so that goes away. And now I just need to get rid of the square, so I'm going to square root. Again, you have to square root both the top and the bottom. We don't like square roots in the bottom, so to get rid, we multiply it times itself, but if I do it to the bottom, you gotta do it to the top as well. So we're going to actually multiply what's in the top, so I'll have 6 times x, which is going to give us 6x, and I'll have 6 times 4, so I'll also have plus 24 over 6 times 6, which is square root of 36, all equals y. You can take the square root of 36, so I'm going to have 6x plus 24, or the square root of 6x plus 24 over 6 equals my inverse. So again, a lot of people forgot to take care of this in the bottom or to multiply the top. All right, last one. So we have to switch our x and y. So I'm going to have x equals y plus 4 squared minus 4. So first thing I'm going to do is move the 4. So now I'm going to have x plus 4 equals y plus 4 squared. All right, so now I cannot move anything in here until I get rid of that square, so I take the square root of both sides. So I have the square root of x plus 4 equals y plus 4. Most of us made it this far. Then I need to move that 4 over. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So I have the square root of x plus 4 minus 4 equals y. This is very similar to number 2. One of these numbers is under the square root, one is not. One is under the square root, one is not. So you cannot combine them. You cannot combine these and get 0. So your last step is just to change your y to the inverse equals the square root of x plus 4 minus 4 should have been your final answer. So please check these over before you take your quiz to make sure that you are doing these correctly.